The Human and the Queen's Challenge. The crowd inside the arena was loud. The sound of stomping feet and alien roars echoed like thunder. This was the Battle Dome of Velterra, home to the most brutal warriors in the galaxy. Today, everyone waited to see something special. In the middle of the huge arena stood a human. His name was Jace Thorn. He looked small compared to the aliens around him. No armor, just simple black pants, a sleeveless vest, and calm eyes. He had short brown hair and a few scars across his arms, but he didn't look scared. On the golden throne high above, Queen Valera sat. She was tall, with violet skin that shimmered in the sun. Her sharp silver eyes watched Jace closely. Her long silver-white hair fell over her shoulder like a river of moonlight. Around her neck was a necklace made of crushed meteor stones, royal and rare. She looked powerful, cold, and proud. This human, she spoke into the floating mic beside her, has entered my arena with courage. But courage is not strength, and weakness must be punished. The crowd roared in support of their queen. She raised her hand, and from the steel gate at the other end of the arena, a massive beast of a man stepped out. The queen's personal champion, HFY. He was twice the size of Jace, muscles like boulders, horns on his shoulders. His eyes glowed red with hatred. Jace smiled gently. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he whispered to himself. The queen's voice rang out again. "Let the challenge begin." HFY charged forward with a loud roar. The ground shook with each of his steps. Jace stayed still until the last moment, then rolled to the side. HFY missed. The crowd gasped. Jace kept moving, staying low and fast. He didn't try to fight with strength. He waited, dodged, and watched carefully. Every punch from HFY was wild and powerful, but easy to predict. After 10 minutes, HFY was breathing hard. Jace finally made his move. He kicked the back of the champion's knee, then jumped and landed a punch on his neck. The big warrior stumbled. Another hit to his ribs, then another. The crowd was silent now. The queen sat straight. Her fingers clenched her throne. HFY roared and tried to crush Jace with his fists. But the human ducked and rolled again. This time, he grabbed a long chain lying in the dirt and wrapped it around HFY's legs. With one pull, HFY fell to the ground with a loud crash. Dust filled the air. Jace stood over him, calm, breathing slowly. "I win," he said softly. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't know what to feel. A human had beaten the queen's champion. The silence was broken by a voice from the elder seat, a robed alien holding the book of law. According to Velterran combat law, the elder said, a warrior who defeats the royal champion may claim one of 3 rewards: freedom, treasure, or the hand of the throne. Gasps echoed across the arena. The queen's eyes burned with anger. She didn't expect this. Everyone looked at Jace. What would the human choose? Jace looked up at the queen. He didn't smile. He didn't bow. He just spoke clearly. "I claim the hand of the throne." The arena exploded with noise. Some screamed. Some laughed. Some were shocked. The queen stood up, her eyes wide. "You dare," she said. Jace nodded once. "Your law, not mine." The elder confirmed it. The claim is made. If not accepted, the queen must step down. The queen's jaw tightened. Her hands trembled. But she was a queen. She could not show fear. "Very well," she said at last. "Let it be done." As Jace walked out of the arena, guards followed him. The crowd stared in silence. Today, he came to survive. Instead, he left as the future husband of the most feared queen in the galaxy. But deep inside the palace, forces were already moving. Whispers, plans, secrets. Because no one, not even the queen, wanted a human on the throne. And the real battle was only beginning. The law of blood and bond. The palace walls of Velterra were silent as stone. Yet tension hummed in the air like static before a storm. Jace Thorne stood in a grand hall, surrounded by guards in black and gold armor. Alien eyes watched his every movement. He had only one weapon now, his calm mind. Everything else, his clothes, his freedom, his safety, even his life, was in the hands of alien politics. Queen Valyra had not spoken to him since the arena. She sat far ahead on her throne, her back straight, her chin high, as if the outcome of the challenge hadn't changed her world. But it had. She had expected to humiliate him. Instead, she was bound by law to marry him. A law she did not write, but one she could not break. An ancient law. A law born of blood and honor. The elder of Velaterra, a thin alien with pale skin and silver eyes, opened the sacred book of bonding. His voice echoed through the chamber. By decree of the First Queens, when a ruler's champion is bested by an outsider in formal challenge, the outsider may claim the ruler's hand in union. The bond shall last no less than 3 star cycles and cannot be broken without royal disgrace. The word disgrace echoed in the queen's mind like thunder. She could refuse. But if she did, the law said she must step down. If she refused, she'd lose the throne. And Valyra was not just a queen. She was an empire. I accept, she said. 3 words. 3 chains. The entire court gasped. A ripple of emotion spread through the palace. Shock, confusion, fury. Jace didn't smile. He wasn't here to gloat. He had a reason. Back on Earth, he had been a soldier, yes, but not just a fighter. He'd been part of peacekeeping teams. He believed in rules, in justice, and in standing up when others were too scared. That's why he didn't back down in the arena. That's why he claimed the queen. Not for power, but because if he had asked for treasure or freedom, he'd just be another story in alien gossip, forgotten in a week. But now they had to see him, listen to him, respect him, or at least try. Later that night, the royal tower. Jace's new chamber was larger than his entire house back home. Marble floors that glowed softly, a ceiling that reflected the stars. Floating plants from alien jungles hung gently in air vents. It was beautiful, but also a golden prison. He wasn't allowed to leave without escort. He wasn't allowed to contact Earth. And the guards outside his door weren't just for protection. They were to keep him in. Valyra entered without warning. She wore a long black robe that shimmered like space. Her silver hair was tied up in a warrior's knot. Her eyes held the cold fire of someone used to command. "You're bold," she said. Jace sat down on the edge of the royal couch. It wasn't a game. "Do you understand what you've done?" she asked sharply. "You humiliated my empire. You twisted a law meant for peace into a weapon." Jace looked at her calmly. "No, I used your law to stop being hunted." She blinked. "The moment I landed on this world, I was treated like I was nothing," he said. "In the arena, you could have let me leave. Instead, you sent a monster to kill me. And now, when I win fair and square, I'm the criminal. You think this makes us equals," she hissed. "No," he said. "It makes us bound." That silenced her. Elsewhere in the palace, the hidden chambers. In the shadows beneath the palace, old voices whispered. "The queen has made a mistake," said a deep voice. "A human cannot sit beside our queen," said another. "He must be removed," growled a third. Sorvar's broken body lay in a healing pod nearby, but his eyes opened slowly. "You'll have your revenge," the shadow said, "and the Empire will forget this foolish human." Plots were already forming. The wedding was set for 5 days from now, but many in the court did not want it to happen. Meanwhile, inside the queen's mind, Valyra looked at herself in the mirror. Her people expected strength. Her advisors expected control. But she wasn't sure anymore. This human didn't bow. He didn't scream. He didn't try to impress her. And somehow, that made her feel more exposed than ever. She wasn't used to being seen. Really seen. What scared her most? Not losing her throne. Not even the ancient law. What scared her most was the question growing quietly in her heart. What if he is not my punishment? What if he is my path to freedom? The queen behind the mask. The stars above the palace of Velterra burned silently, but within the queen's chambers, a different fire was stirring, one far more complicated than war. Queen Valera sat alone on her balcony, her face lit only by the soft blue glow of her planet's twin moons. Her robe hung loosely off her shoulders, no longer the armor of power she wore in court. Her eyes were focused far away, on memories, not stars. In her hands was a small metal token. It was the insignia of her father, the former king. Before he died, he told her to always wear a mask. A ruler must never be loved, only feared. Love makes you weak. For years, she had followed his words. But now, there was Jace. Inside the consort's wing, Jace walked through the long hallway toward the royal archives. 2 alien guards followed him closely. He wasn't trusted yet, even though he was now legally her consort. He wasn't allowed to attend royal meetings. He wasn't allowed to speak in court. He was a symbol, not a husband. But Jace didn't care about titles. He was a soldier, a thinker, and more than anything, an observer, and something didn't add up. Valera had publicly humiliated him by sending her champion to crush him, yes, but she had also saved him from assassination last night. He had seen it with his own eyes. She'd stepped in front of a blade meant for him. Why? He had to know. Later that night, a soft knock echoed in the queen's private chamber. Valera didn't answer. The door opened anyway. It was Jace. He stepped inside slowly, noticing the lack of guards. For the first time, she was alone, unguarded, vulnerable. "I can leave," he said gently, "if this is your time." Valera didn't tell him to go. Instead, she said, "I knew you would come." "Why did you protect me?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Then, slowly, she turned to face him. "You don't act like them," she said. "You didn't gloat when you won. You didn't ask for gold or ships. You asked for me. It wasn't a trick." "I know," she whispered. She walked to a side table and poured herself a glass of green glowing wine. Her hands trembled slightly. Jace noticed. "You're not as cold as you pretend," he said. That hit something inside her. Valera sat down. And for the first time, she spoke not as a queen, but as a person. "The past behind the crown. When I was young, my father was poisoned in front of me," she began. "He died choking on his own breath, and the court did nothing. I was 16. I took the throne with blood still on my shoes." Jace listened, silently. "They told me emotions were weakness. I believed them. So I became their cold-hearted queen. I sent warriors to die. I crushed rebellions. I silenced poets who dared to speak against me. But every year, my crown felt heavier." She looked at him. "And then you came." Jace sat across from her, not close, not distant, just there. "You fought smart. You didn't kill Xorvar when you could have. You just stopped him." "I don't enjoy killing," Jace said softly. "That's why I saved you," she said. "Because for a moment, when that blade came at you, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Fear, not for my throne, but for someone else." She stood up again, as if the admission had broken some chain in her chest. "You make me feel things I locked away." Meanwhile, in the shadows, in a dark chamber beneath the palace, Xorvar, now healed but still bitter, trained alone with sharpened blades. "He's making her soft," whispered one of the high-ranking advisors. "She will break." "He must be removed," another said. Xorvar didn't speak. He only grunted, and slammed his blade into the training wall again and again. He was waiting, planning. Soon, the law wouldn't matter. Soon, the blood would speak louder than tradition. Back in the Queen's chambers, Valera walked to a small drawer behind her desk. She opened it and pulled out something Jace didn't expect. A thin, cracked data crystal. "This," she said, "contains my father's final orders. He told me to never trust anyone not born under Velteran stars." She looked into Jace's eyes. "And yet, I trust you." Jace stepped closer now. "Then let me in," he said. "Into what?" "Into the person behind the crown." Silence filled the room. Then, in a whisper, she said, "Maybe." That night, Jace didn't return to his room. Instead, he stayed seated near her, talking about Earth, about stars, about things that didn't involve crowns or war. Valera listened. She even smiled once. A small, sad smile. And though nothing happened beyond words, something powerful changed between them. For the first time, the Queen of Velterra didn't wear her mask. She was just a woman. And Jace, he saw her, not as an enemy, not as a ruler, but as someone broken who wanted to be whole again. A war they didn't expect. For 3 days, a strange calm had settled over the royal palace. The once icy silence between Jace and Queen Valera had softened. They no longer avoided each other. Meals were shared quietly. A few questions here, a short laugh there. The air was no longer filled with hatred, but with something unknown. And that was dangerous. Not for them, but for those watching. Those who hated the human's presence. Inside the war hall, forbidden entry. Jace stood before the door to the war hall. 2 guards blocking his path. "I only want to observe," Jace said calmly. "I'm not here to cause problems." "The council meeting is for nobles and battle tacticians," one alien said coldly. "Not consorts." Jace turned his back, walking away. But the moment he turned the corner, he pulled out a tiny listening device he borrowed from the tech wing. He had his ways. He slipped it into a crack near the door. The war council began. Inside, arguments broke out. "The human is a virus in our court. We should never have accepted him. Tradition binds us. He won by law." One voice, deep and slow, silenced them all. "He has weakened the Queen's fire," it said. "And while she looks away, the border rebels grow stronger. Already, their ships hover too close." The council paused. "What are you saying?" asked a cautious voice. "I'm saying war is coming." And in truth, it already had. Elsewhere, the outer skies of Velterra, just outside the royal city, above the atmosphere, a fleet of stealth cruisers drifted quietly. Cloaked, silent. These weren't pirates. They were the remnants of the old guard, a group that had once served the Queen's father, a group that believed no alien outside their own race should be allowed to touch royal blood. They called themselves the Line. Inside the flagship, Orvar stood tall, his body healed and even stronger than before. His eyes glowed a deeper red now, fury burning behind them. "Operation Crownbreaker begins now," he said. And the ships moved. Midnight, the palace attacked. Jace was in the training hall when it began. At first, a tremble beneath his feet. Then, an explosion. The glass of the upper dome shattered. Screams filled the air. Guards scrambled, weapons ready. An alien guard shouted, "We are under attack." Jace ran, dodging falling stone and metal as parts of the ceiling collapsed. He didn't run for safety. He ran for her. In the Queen's wing, Valera was already armored, her guards forming a protective ring around her. But Jace burst through the smoke and flames. "You're not staying here," he told her. "I am the Queen." She barked, angry and wild-eyed. "You're the Queen of nothing if you die tonight." Jace snapped back. That stopped her. She stared at him, not as a subject, not as a consort, as a partner, and she nodded. Together, they fought. Jace and Valera moved through the burning palace, side by side, cutting down rebel attackers. Jace used a stolen alien blade, small but sharp, fast. He ducked, rolled, struck with precision. Valera fought like a storm, her energy blade dancing in circles of light. They reached the war balcony. From there, they saw the sky lit in red and orange. Explosions. Ships crashing. The royal fleet was outnumbered. "We're losing," Valera whispered. "We need to lead," Jace said. She looked at him. "You would lead beside me." He didn't answer with words. He took her hand. And together, they ran toward the command tower. A message to the people. Inside the control room, Valera activated the planetary broadcast system. Her face appeared on every screen across Velterra. "People of Velterra," she said, voice trembling but strong. "We are under attack, but we will not fall." Behind her, Jace stood silently. Just his presence sent a message. She continued, "The man you doubted, the human, fights beside me. Not for power, not for fame, but because this empire is now his home too." She looked to Jace. He nodded. "Stand with us," she said, "or lose everything." Outside, the tide turns. The people of Velterra heard her, and they answered. Citizens armed themselves. Royal guards returned to formation. Defensive towers powered up again. One by one, rebel ships were pushed back. The line, once silent and strong, began to fall. In orbit, Thorvar screamed as his flagship was hit. He fled into darkness. But his anger was not gone. He would return. Later that night, the palace was damaged. Walls blackened by smoke. Statues shattered. But it stood. Jace stood beside Valera as medical teams treated the wounded. He had a deep cut on his shoulder, but didn't complain. Valera looked at him, not as a queen, but as something else entirely. "You saved me," she said. "No," Jace replied. "We saved each other." She reached up slowly, touched his cheek. For the first time in her life, she let someone close without fear. "You are not what I expected. Neither are you." And somewhere, between war and fire, trust was born. The wedding that shook the stars. The palace of Velterra still bore the scars of battle. Its once shining towers were marked with soot. Cracks ran down its marble walls. The royal banners were torn by flame and wind. But inside the great hall, a new banner now hung. Black and silver. The colors of union. Not for a war, but for a wedding. Whispers across the galaxy. On hundreds of planets, millions of beings gathered near screens and crystals, tuned to the live transmission. The Queen of Velterra, cold and untouchable for years, was finally to be wed. But not to a prince, not to a royal, to a human, Jace Thorn. And everywhere, people asked the same question. Why? In the bride's chambers, Valera stood in front of the tall mirror, her long robe trailing behind her like a river of starlight. Her crown was in the corner. She had chosen not to wear it today. For the first time, she wasn't dressing as a ruler, but as a woman standing between two paths, one of control and one of unknown love. Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted the silver bands on her wrists. Then a voice behind her spoke. "You look afraid." It was Jace. He had entered without announcement. "You should not be here," she said, but her voice had no fire. "I'm not here to ruin your tradition," he said, "only to ask you one question." She turned slowly. "What question?" He took a breath. "This wedding, do you want it, or are you still doing it because of the law?" The question cut through the air like a blade. Valera stared at him, and then she smiled, just a little. "I used to think love was a weakness," she said. "But now I wonder, maybe it's the only strength left when everything else falls." She took a step closer. "I don't know what this is between us," she said, "but I want to find out." Jace nodded, his heart calm but strong. "So do I." The ceremony begins. The grand hall was rebuilt in days for this moment. Alien lanterns floated through the air. The sacred harp of Velterra, a massive instrument made of wind and light, played soft notes that shimmered like glass. Jace walked slowly through the archway, dressed in a dark royal tunic stitched with the twin moons of Velterra. He walked alone. He had no family here. But as he stepped forward, the alien people watched him, not with hate anymore, but with interest, and maybe even respect. Then came Valera. When she entered, silence fell across the hall. She wore a dark silver gown that moved like liquid metal. Her shoulders were bare, her hair woven with stardust. Her eyes, usually cold and unreadable, held something new. Hope. They met at the center. The elder placed the old book of bonding between them. "Queen of Velterra," he said, "do you accept this union not by law, but by will?" Valera looked into Jace's eyes. "I do, human of Earth." The elder turned. "Do you accept the queen, not by victory, but by heart?" Jace smiled gently. "I do." The elder raised the crystal crown, the symbol of united rule, and prepared to seal the vows. But before it could be placed, an explosion shakes the sky. The windows shattered. The ground trembled. Screams filled the hall. From above, a piece of the ceiling cracked and fell, right toward Valera. Jace reacted before thinking. He lunged, knocking her to the ground and covering her with his body. A massive beam crashed beside them, just missing by inches. Guards pulled their weapons. Confusion spread. The elder shouted, "Protect the queen." Valera coughed from the dust, looking up into Jace's face, his arms still around her, his eyes scanning for danger. "You always do that," she whispered. "Do what?" "Save me." He helped her up, and this time, she didn't push him away. The traitor revealed. From the wreckage, a shadow stepped into the hall. It was one of the queen's most trusted generals, Lord Sarin. He had led the palace defenses, fought beside her. Now he raised a plasma blade, pointed straight at them. "This marriage will kill Velterra," he shouted. "No more." Jace moved to shield her again, but Valera stepped forward herself. "You dishonor the people," she said. "No," the general sneered. "I honor the bloodline. I loved your father. He would have never allowed this shame." He charged. Valera raised her hand and unleashed a pulse of raw energy. It knocked him backward across the floor, unconscious. The guards surrounded him. The room slowly returned to order. They finished what they started. Though the floor was cracked and smoke still drifted, the ceremony continued. Champion reborn, queen in chains. The celebration of the royal union had not lasted long. Only 3 nights had passed since Queen Valera and Jace were officially bonded under the stars. Yet in those short days, the galaxy shifted again. Because in the shadows, something old was rising. Something angry. Something made of betrayal and blood. The return of the fallen. Deep in the void between stars, on a forgotten moon scared by war, a figure stood tall beneath flickering lights. Exorvar, the queen's former champion, once broken by Jace in the arena, now reborn. His muscles were wrapped in black armor made from the remains of a forbidden beast. His eyes glowed red, hotter and brighter than before. His wounds had healed, but his pride had not. He had trained in silence and waited. He had lost to Jace not by power, but by mind. That would not happen again. He spoke to the rebels kneeling before him. "Velterra is weak. Its queen is soft. The human has poisoned her." The rebels growled in agreement. "Tonight," he said, "we take her back." In the palace, the calm before the storm, Jace walked the garden path outside the queen's chambers. The night air was cool. The stars above shimmered like dust. A gentle wind rustled the glowing trees. He had started to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. Valera had changed. She wasn't the hard ruler anymore, not with him. They still argued sometimes. She still kept secrets. But she laughed now. She listened. She leaned on him. Jace stopped beside the small fountain where she often sat in the evenings. She wasn't there. He turned, and the sky exploded. The ambush. From the far side of the palace, 3 shock bombs went off at once. Guards flew through the air. Walls crumbled. A 4th explosion rocked the throne chamber. Jace ran toward the sound. Screams filled the air. Then silence. He entered the main hall, heart pounding. The crown was on the floor. But she was gone. A blood trail led across the stone. Jace's chest tightened. Not again. Not her. A message from the enemy. Hours later, in the war hall, a broadcast played across all royal screens. Sorvar's face filled the frame. "I have taken the queen," he said. "She belongs to Velterra, not to Earth's filth." Jace stood among the council. Every eye turned to him. "This is your doing," one elder hissed. "You weakened her," another said. "Made her vulnerable." But Jace didn't listen to the blame. His fists clenched. He turned to the guards. "Get me a ship." The forbidden rescue. The Queen's signal was traced to the Wailing Cliffs, a jagged, floating cluster of rocks beyond the atmosphere. Too dangerous to land a full ship. Too unpredictable for a battalion. So Jace went alone. Wearing light armor, a small energy blade at his side, and Valira's pendant around his neck. The guards begged him to wait. He didn't. I didn't save her to lose her again. Inside the prison fortress, Valira woke in a dark stone room, her wrists bound with energy cuffs. Her crown was gone, her robe torn, her face bloodied. Sorvar stood across from her. "You made us fools," he said, "for a human." Valira didn't speak. He stepped closer. "You were a queen. Now you are nothing." She lifted her head and said, quietly but fiercely, "If I'm nothing, why are you so afraid?" He struck her. The sound echoed, but her stare never broke. The climb. Jace reached the base of the fortress. There were no gates, just jagged rock, lightning storms, and wind that could slice steel. He started to climb. His hands bled. His arms trembled. But he didn't stop. Each pull upward was for her. Each slip reminded him of what was at stake. At the top, 2 guards blocked his path. He took them down in seconds, fast, clean, efficient. The warrior in him had returned. He stormed through the hallways, heart full of fire. The fight. Jace found her in the throne room of the ruined fortress, tied to the old war seat. Sorvar stood nearby, his blade already drawn. "You again," the champion growled. Jace stepped forward. "No tricks this time," Sorvar said. "No chains, no distractions, just you and me." Jace nodded. "I'm not here for the crown. I'm here for her." And the fight began. It was brutal. Var was stronger. Jace was faster. They moved like shadows through the broken chamber. Blades clashed. Blood fell. But Jace remembered something Valira once said. "A true warrior fights not with hate, but with purpose." And Jace's purpose was clear. He saw an opening, dodged under a heavy swing, and struck Sorvar across the chest. Once, twice. The third time, the champion fell. Not dead, but defeated. Again, Jace dropped to his knees beside Valira. "Hey," he whispered, cutting her cuffs. She looked up at him, her lips trembling. "You came. Always. The escape." The fortress collapsed behind them as they escaped through a side tunnel. The queen leaned on him, too weak to walk alone. He carried her when she couldn't move. At the edge of the cliffs, a royal drone appeared, sent by the guard ship that tracked his signal. As they flew away, she lay in his arms, broken and safe. "You didn't have to come alone," she whispered. "I wasn't going to let you break and chain yourself for others ever again," he said. "I love you," she said. And this time, she meant it without hesitation. Jace and Valera stood, wounded but stronger than before. This time, when the elder raised the crown, the room was silent with awe. When it touched both their brows, the winds of Velterra shifted. It was done. The queen was not alone anymore. Later that night, the palace was quiet. Jace stood on the balcony, watching stars. Valera came beside him, holding 2 glasses. She offered him one. "To peace," he said. "To change," she replied. They toasted silently. And in the dark, surrounded by the stars of a galaxy still learning what love meant, they smiled. Together, a queen, a human, and a future unknown. The sun rose slowly over Velterra. Its golden light spilled across the battered palace walls, touching the towers still under repair. The wounds of war had not yet healed, but the planet had survived. Its people were rebuilding. And inside the royal healing chamber, a queen was waking up for the first time in 3 days. The recovery. Queen Valera blinked slowly as her eyes adjusted to the light. Her body ached. Her ribs were wrapped in silver bindings. Her arm was in a sling. But she was alive. Beside her bed, sleeping in a chair with his arms crossed and head tilted down, was Jace. He had not left. He hadn't changed clothes. He had simply stayed. The moment her breathing shifted, he opened his eyes. "You're awake," he said softly. She gave him a tired smile. "You look terrible." "So do you." They both chuckled. Then she reached for his hand. He held it gently. A court transformed. 3 days after the rescue, the High Council called an emergency session. For decades, the court had been a place of cold power and silence. But this day was different. The hall was filled not just with nobles, but with citizens. Engineers, teachers, even soldiers stood in the upper rings, watching. Jace stood at the queen's side as she entered, slowly, still healing, but proud. One of the elders stood. "Your Majesty, many believe this union has brought us pain. War, rebellion, a fallen champion." Valera stepped forward. "And many more know it has brought us truth," she replied. She pointed to the balcony. "To hide behind titles is easy. To follow outdated laws is simple. But to face change, that takes strength. I was a queen of fear. Now I choose to be a queen of choice." She turned to Jace. "I chose him, not because I was forced, but because he fought for us, not just for me." Jace didn't speak. He simply nodded. His presence was enough. The council did not argue. For the first time in history, the chamber applauded. Peace talks and strange invitations. Within weeks, Jace began meeting with alien leaders from across the galaxy. Not as a warrior, not as a consort, but as a bridge. He spoke to former enemies, to frightened allies. He showed them that a human, someone once seen as weak, could bring strength of a different kind. Peace missions were launched. Trade began to grow. For the first time in years, the Empire looked outward not with weapons, but with curiosity. The Queen's secret garden. One night, after the council meeting, Valera led Jace to a hidden part of the palace. A quiet garden filled with glowing flowers that opened only under moonlight. "This was my mother's place," she said. "I've never shown it to anyone." "Why now?" Jace asked. "Because I'm not the same anymore." He looked around. The air smelled of sweet ash and warm soil. "I used to dream of leaving Earth," he said. "Now I dream of staying here, with you." She leaned against him. "I have something for you," she said. From a small pouch, she pulled a ring, shaped like a twisted star. "In our culture," she whispered, "the one who wears this shares my soul." She placed it in his palm. No crown, no law, just us. He slid it onto his finger, then kissed her, slow, gentle, real. A galaxy watches. In time, they became more than rulers. They became a symbol for unity, for change, for love. Children on distant planets played games pretending to be the human and the queen. Old warriors whispered tales of the man who defied fate and won not a war, but a heart. The stories spread. Years later, the final scene. A child ran through the palace garden, giggling as she chased glowing insects with tiny wings. She had violet eyes and soft brown hair. She stopped suddenly when two figures stepped into the garden. "Papa," she cried. Jace picked her up, spinning her in the air. Valera smiled, watching them. The little girl looked up. "Mama, will I be queen one day?" Valera knelt beside her. "You'll be more than a queen," she said softly. "You'll be brave, like him." She pointed to Jace. "And kind. Like you," he added, smiling at Valera. The child nodded, proud. The stars above them glowed brighter than ever. And the galaxy, once torn by fear and pride, stood silent, in awe of what love had created.